All right, welcome to the Super Bowl preview edition of First in Pod. I'm Andrew Fillipponi. I'm in Pittsburgh in my home office. Patrick Peterson is in New Orleans in a luxurious 5-star hotel room. Spencer Ray is in parts unknown somewhere in Michigan, probably drinking IPAs right now and getting us through this Super Bowl Kalamazoo. Okay. Derek Jeter's stomping grounds. As we get through this Super Bowl 59 podcast episode, subscribe, rate, review. It's very important that you just don't listen, you subscribe. That builds up our listener base, that puts us on lists that allow us to get more listeners and keep the podcast growing. So we've done every game every week all year. We're down to this one, Pat, the big enchilada, the Eagles and Chiefs for all the marbles. I've got 5 questions on Super Bowl 59 that we're going to go through here on tonight's taping. The first one is, are the Chiefs a win away from becoming the greatest dynasty in NFL history?
No. They are multiple Super Bowls wins away from becoming the greatest dynasty. Just because what the Patriots have done, I know the Kansas City Chiefs have done it, within the last 6 years, going to the last, 5 Super Bowls in the last 7 years. That's remarkable. But the Patriots went to 9 Super Bowls in total and coming out with 6. So therefore, they still got 3 more Super Bowls to go. What they're doing right now is remarkable, because I get what you're saying. They have the chance to be the first team to ever three-peat. And that's probably why this question came up. But what they are doing is remarkable, but they still have a long ways to go. That's just almost like when they put up that stat with Scottie Scheffler and Tiger Woods, right? Everybody, this phenomenal run that Scottie Scheffler is on right now. This is crazy. Nobody has ever done this before. Next thing you know, they put up a Tiger Woods stat, and he's light years behind what Tiger Woods was doing. So not saying that the Chiefs are light years behind, but they still have a ways to go to do and catch what the New England Patriots did while they had Tom Brady and Bill Belichick after him.
That spanned almost 20 years. It started in 2001 when they won the Super Bowl and upset the Rams. That's the second biggest upset in Super Bowl history, behind Super Bowl III when the Jets beat the Colts and ushered in the NFL merger. They were a 2-touchdown underdog in that game. And it ended in 2019 when they lost to the Titans in the playoffs and Brady went to Tampa Bay. So that's 19 years of football. And you've got your stats. You've got your information spot on, Pat. 6 wins, 3 more Super Bowl visits. They went to every AFC championship game from 2011 to 2018. That's 8 consecutive AFC championship games. The Chiefs have gone to every AFC championship game from 2019 to 2024. Okay, so that would be, 6 AFC championship games in a row.
Yeah.
So they're close, but they're not there yet.
Yeah.
I will also point out, I think Lombardi's Packers get jobbed here because we act like the Super Bowl one is when the NFL started. Okay, that's like the Adam and Eve moment for people. They think that that's like the Garden of Eden when it started. It's not true.
Right.
In 66, Packers won the NFL championship. They beat the Browns. Then the next year, they won Super Bowl. And then the year after that, they won Super Bowl II. So that is 3 years in a row where they were champs back to back. The first year, there just wasn't a Super Bowl. So I don't think they should get docked for that because the game didn't exist. So it's happened. It's just a long time ago in the 60s, and people forget about that. I also will say this, and I'm very interested in hearing your answer. They don't pass my eye test like those other teams. And I know that it's like easy now. It's like become cool and trendy to like try to trash the Chiefs and pile on the Chiefs and, the refs are why they win games and everything else. But I'm old enough to have watched the 80s Niners. I'm old enough to have watched the 90s Cowboys. I'm old enough to have watched the incredible longevity of those Cowboys teams. These Chiefs teams are not as good as those teams. We can go position by position on each roster. The Chiefs are gonna win quarterback against most teams, and they're gonna win tight end And honestly, Pat, I think that's where their edge stops. I think that's where their advantages stop. This team, for me, if they win the Super Bowl, and I know they won 15 games, but 11 of them were one-score games, and they were 11-0 in the one-score games. For me, this is the worst team to have won a Super Bowl since the Ravens did it in 2012 when they fired their offensive coordinator and Flacco got hot.
Wait, you're
yes.
saying that
You disagree?
You're saying if the Kansas City Chiefs win this year, they will be the worst team to win the Super Bowl?
In terms of the team, how they looked from week 1 through the end of the season, they will be, in my opinion, I know they got
eye test.
Yes, the eye test.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
I think if I put them in a game against the last 2012 is a long time now. That's like 13 years. If I put them in a Super Bowl situation against those other teams, I think they lose. Is my take. I don't think I think they're a great team because of what they've done the previous 2 seasons, what they did in 2023 and what they did in 2022. But I think, Pat, these are the 5 teams they beat by more than a touchdown this year. The Saints, the Browns, the Niners, the Steelers at the end of the year, and Houston in the divisional round game. It's blocked field goals. It's last-second field goals. I mean, I'm going to give them credit for doing that, but shit, your Vikings team did that. They got no credit for it. Your team did that the entire year, and people said you guys sucked. So come on now.
As far as the eye test, they may not pass the eye test, but what do you need to win football games? Like, hands down, like, we all can say defense wins, this, that, and other, but what do you need to win football games? A damn good quarterback. And a quarterback who understands situations, a quarterback who's not going to turn the ball over, a quarterback who has the will to win, and match that up with a head coach and an offensive coordinator who's been in these moments before. It's just a match made in heaven. You may say, excuse me, you may say that they don't pass the eye test. Let's go back to the New England. Let's see what year. When they beat the Eagles. What year was that? 04, 03?
Yeah, so they beat the Eagles in 04. That was their third in 4 years when they did that. Yeah.
So at the same time, like, who did they have on the offensive side of the ball? I can't even remember. They damn sure didn't have no top known name, well known names. They had Tom Brady.
Corey Dillon was their running back.
Corey Dillon was a running back. That's when Brady was, basically at the peak, heading to the peak of his career.
They had Deion Branch, David Patton.
So they didn't do anything. They didn't do it. I know football was different back then, but they didn't do anything outrageous. They played solid football, won close games, and played great defense. That's exactly what the the Kansas City Chiefs are doing right now. They just know they have the motto of, we're going to beat you however it's called. Like, whatever is called upon to win this football game, we have the recipe to do it. And the way they win games are not going to be pretty. It's not going to be as ugly as it used to be, 3-4 years ago. Those guys putting up 30, 40, 50 on the scoreboard, winning by multiple touchdowns. Like, the game is starting to change and they're starting to get caught up to. But at the same time, what's the biggest difference is the coaching and that dang on Patrick Mahomes. Like, he's a winner. The coach understands how to win, and Andy Reid, he understands how to put his players in position to win. And now he has a quarterback that's pretty much like him, receiving the ball all the time. It's a match made in heaven. So they may not pass the eye test, but as long as those two are together, they're gonna always be in the big game.
Oh, that part is true. I mean, the worst they've done in a season with those two working with each other is the AFC Championship game.
Right.
They also, if they win, 4-6 will not be the first time that's happened either. The Steelers in the 70s won in 74, 75, and then they won in 78 and 79. So that was 4-6. There's probably 10 Hall of Famers, if I counted them up right now, on those teams. How many Hall of Famers are on the Chiefs team right now? Mahomes?
I was going to say that's even more remarkable, though. That's even more
Well, that
remarkable that they're
speaks,
doing
I
this.
agree, but doesn't that speak to the idea that football's evolved enough, Pat, where like the quarterback on his own makes your team that much better as opposed to like back then when it wasn't such a quarterback-driven league?
Rephrase that question one more time. I want to make sure I answer this
Well, I'm just
correctly.
saying,
Say
like
it again.
back then, yeah, you wanted a quarterback, but it wasn't like,
Mhm.
okay, if you don't have a top 5 quarterback, you're screwed like it basically is now. That was not the way football was
Yeah, no,
played like in the
that definitely wasn't
70s.
no. Exactly. Yeah, that wasn't the mantra, back then. Like they felt like they could win with whoever was throwing the ball, as long as they didn't turn it over. You know what I mean? Because back then the game was all made upon physicality and power. You know what I mean? So it was a lot of runs, a lot of really possession routes. Like teams really wasn't taking shots like that. And when it was with me watching film back then, it's like, man, everything is telegraphed. Like, you know what I mean, far as the way they were running to run play action, like the only shot that they was able to run was like play action. Like if you knew if a team was running the ball, next thing you as a DB, you have to have your antennas up that a play action and a deep post or a shot is coming. And that's the only thing that they was doing, back in the day. So they probably felt that they didn't need a quarterback that's able to improvise, be able to, because you got to also think about the athletic ability is, in my opinion, is totally different than what it was. Like the speed is different than what it was back in those days. So now you need a quarterback that's a little bit more agile in the pocket, that can create time for his receivers, in that down that they're trying to survive.
Question 2. Now, the Eagles, I think, are a throwback team that's built like those teams from 30, 40 years ago. In fact, if they win the Super Bowl, they will become the first team since the 1975 Steelers to have more rushing attempts in a season than passing attempts if they win.
Wow.
How close is Saquon Barkley from having the best season by a running back ever, in your opinion?
Very close. Very close. If they win this is the best season as a running back in NFL history, because I don't know the exact
Wow.
year that Eric Dickerson won the when he actually eclipsed the title.
84.
But did the Rams, who 84? You say 84?
Yep.
Yeah, so they wasn't Super Bowl champs.
No,
So
they lost
if
the first
he
playoff game. Giants, actually.
exactly, so if he's able to go out and win a Super Bowl and on top of that get a Super Bowl MVP, come on, man. It's not even a question, because you got to think about this as well. He already averaged 100 and what was his average this year? 100 plus for sure, right? If
Well, yeah,
he
he had
plays that game
2,005 yards in 17 games, so that's over 100 yards per game.
exactly, so the team decided not to let him break the record, because I believe if he plays, he break the record.
Correct. Against the
And
Giants,
now
no
if he
doubt.
yes, and now he goes on and win a Super Bowl and cap it off with a Super Bowl MVP. That's the best. That's the best season ever by NFL running back. Ain't no question about it.
So I think right now, if he does what you just said, I think it's going to end up being second all time for me.
Okay.
So just to give people some background here, if he gets 30 yards rushing in the game, okay, if he does more than 30 yards rushing, he's going to break Terrell Davis's record for most rushing yards in a full season, regular season, and postseason when you add up both. That's all he needs is 30. He's going to do that unless he,
Yeah,
knock on wood,
don't even say it.
breaks his
Don't
record.
even. Yep.
Okay?
Yep. Leave it out there.
So he's going to get that. There are 2 players in NFL history who have won the rushing title and also won the Super Bowl. Only 2. Rushing title, Super Bowl. Terrell Davis and Emmitt Smith. So if he wins, he's the 3rd guy. But listen to Emmitt Smith's 1992 season, Pat. He won the MVP, regular season MVP on the Cowboys. They beat the Bills. He wins the Super Bowl MVP.
Mm-hmm.
And he led the league in rushing with 1,400 yards. So rushing title MVP, Super Bowl MVP, Super Bowl champion. That's the number one season for me. If Barkley wins, I think he's second behind that. But let me just say this. My opinion, if I was one of the 50 voters for the NFL regular season MVP, I would have voted for Saquon Barkley.
Me too.
You?
Now,
You too?
now, just looking at the totality of the season and having the opportunity to really like catch my breath, from the 17-week season, 18 weeks, including the buys that all the teams received. Saquon was a man amongst childs. You know what I mean? Amongst children. You know what I mean? He was doing something that, Eric Dickerson and those guys were doing. And I know that back then that the box was stacked. They pretty much knew what they was going to do. But Saquon Barkley was playing like a dang on video game, man. Like we seen something that we never seen before, like hurdle backwards over a player. You know what I mean? So it was just cool to see him, Derrick Henry, um, Josh Jacobs, and a couple others like really to try to reinvent the running back market. You know what I mean? So that was cool to see. But I definitely would have an opportunity to sit back and really looking at the season. Yeah, he would have got my vote as well. Because there were some games, now that I think about it, there were some stretches throughout the season to where Lamar was kind of like, I mean, he still had an outstanding season, but there was time to where there was a roller coaster, and Saquon Barkley was just steady throughout the year, man, averaging 125.3 yards a game. Like it's just undeniable to say that he don't deserve those votes.
I think 8 running backs all time. And among the 2000 club, we're talking about the first one to make it to a Super Bowl. So we'll see what happens here with Saquon. But I think this is a season for the ages if he's able to close the deal and have one more huge game against the Chiefs here Sunday night. All right, question 3 here, Pat. Is this going to be the last time we see Travis Kelce play football?
I don't know. I don't have a yes or a no. I believe if they win, I believe he go after it again, because now he kind of understand how to pace himself, throughout the year, which we talked about all year, that he was going to come alive towards the back half of the season. I believe those records now that he have the all-time record, receiving record, breaking Tony Gonzalez record, Chiefs record, touchdown reception record. I feel like he's kind of like, cruising right now. If they lose, I could see it being his last season. But if they win, I can see him coming back and doing something that nobody else have even done, and that's going on a 4-peat. You know what I mean? So it'll be interesting to see, what happens after this game, and maybe he may end up hanging up the cleats after this one, because it was like, all right, enough is enough. I can go out in the sunset, either way, because there's no real guarantee that you can be there again next year. So it's going to be quite interesting to see what happens at the end of the game. But I do believe if they win, I believe he comes back. If they lose, I could see Trav hanging it up.
See, I've heard most people in the media do the opposite, where they think that he'd rather ride off into the sunset, and it would be easier for him to retire after a win than a loss. Given your playing experience and history, I appreciate that you're like, well, wait a minute. People think that if he wins 3, then that's easier to shut down. But how do you voluntarily close the door on trying to win 4?
All right.
Like I think that's what you're saying, right? Like, how do you
Get out
walk
about
away?
it.
And I think that's like a super compelling argument that I haven't heard a lot of people make. You brought up Tony Gonzalez. I'm happy that you did. Gonzalez, at 36 years old, was in Atlanta. He had left Kansas City. So that's a year older than Travis. That would be Travis Kelce's next year. When Tony Gonzalez was 36, he caught 93 balls for Atlanta. That is a shit ton of catches.
That
93.
is.
And
That is.
I bring that up because the thing I see in Travis Kelce as a fan, as a novice, you played. It seems like it's not. I mean, look, he's well conditioned. I get that, but it's such a feel thing for him. He knows the spaces, body, like being able to get open even without being like the fastest or the most physical or the biggest. And I think because of where he's at mentally and how in sync he is with his coach and with his quarterback, I don't think he needs to condition himself around the clock and be, this ultra fit athlete to be a good player, Pat. And what you said before, like it's turned into for the Chiefs, let's get through the regular season and then we're going to take it to another level once we get to the playoffs. And I see no reason why he'd want to stop doing that. He has Taylor Swift support. He already said that. Like, she wants me to keep playing. He talked the other day about how he could see himself playing for 3 more years. His contract's up in Kansas City, but that's an easy thing to work out. I mean, they're not going to bust his balls, and I don't think he's going to hold them over the barrel either. Like, unless he has an injury or a condition or something that we don't know about, I think he is going to play. People keep trying to like put themselves in his shoes and say, well, he's ready to go do other things. I don't know, man. Like,
That's
go
the
ahead and
thing
respond
too.
to
Like,
that. Go ahead and
yeah, why
respond to
the
that.
media always want to write people off? Just let guys say when they're done. Like, what's wrong with that? Like you said, stop putting yourself in the athlete's shoes and thinking what you think they're thinking. Like, just let the guys be athletes, and you'll get the news when you get the news. Let's stop speculating all the damn time about, trying to get guys out of the dang on league. I mean, he's a great, so we want to see that as long as possible.
And the other thing is, the difference, I think, is if a guy is clearly like Peyton Manning in his last year, and you're
Right.
watching him basically get dragged to the finish line by that Broncos defense, okay, you know what I'm saying? That's one thing.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
you're paid to give your opinion on how a guy's performing, or like what you and I have said about Aaron Rodgers this year. Like Aaron Rodgers is not playing like a $40 million quarterback anymore.
Right. We
And
never
plus
said that
the
he should
baggage,
retire.
right? The baggage he brings, like the way he wants to take over an organization. Okay, that's way different than a guy who still clearly 2 weeks ago he had a monster game against Houston. Last week against Buffalo, Pat, 2 catches for 19 yards. It was the fewest catches and the fewest yards he's ever had in a playoff game. Here's why I think he's going to have a big game, though, on Sunday. Zach Ertz, who's the same age against Philly in the NFC Championship game for Washington, had 11 catches for 104 yards. And we know Philly's compromised at linebacker because Nakobe Dean's out. And he was the guy that really was able to run with tight ends that frees up Zach Bond to do the other stuff. And he took on a lot of that responsibility. Well, Oren Burks is doing that job now, and Dean is out for the Super Bowl. So unless Fangio makes some kind of huge adjustment where he really puts, bodies and zooms in on Kelce, I expect him to go back to doing what he usually does, Pat, and that's perform very well in the playoff in a playoff game. How about you?
Yeah, I expect him to perform very well as well, just knowing the Vic Fangio's defense and philosophy. Like, they're looking to take away the shots, right? And I feel like with Travis Kelce, he's a guy that understands how to manipulate himself in the different holes, in the pockets, in the zones. They're not a big man-to-man team, so I think that's a huge advantage towards
That is a huge
the
advantage for him.
Yeah, I think that's a huge advantage towards the Kansas City Chiefs and their offense. And another player who I think is going to probably have a big game if they do decide to put bodies on Travis Kelce is, I know he haven't really shown up on the stat sheet a lot throughout this playoff, but DeAndre Hopkins. I had the opportunity to speak with him Monday at media night, and I didn't ask him was he heavily involved in the in the playbook, in the game plan in the Super Bowl, But I asked him, how did he feel about, the 2 catches that he had in the 2 playoff wins that the Chiefs have received to get themselves in the Super Bowl. Obviously, he was happy that he was here, but he also said him and Andy Reid understand how big this moment in game is for a seasoned vet like him. So I expect a big game out of D Hop. So it's gonna be interesting, man. It's gonna be fun to watch. I can't wait to see what happens.
You are part of that media night craziness. Look at you crossing over to the dark side and being a part of that now,
You
Pat.
see me getting some little nuggets?
Yeah, man, I love it. I think that's awesome. All right, question 4. Where will you rank Patrick Mahomes if he wins another Super Bowl and Super Bowl MVP? So that would be 4 Super Bowl wins, and that would be 4 Super Bowl MVPs if he wins this one on Sunday.
He'll be T2.
Is T for tied for second? What's the
Yeah,
T
it'd
stand?
be tied for second. It'd be tied for second with Joe Montana.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, man. Just because I know I haven't watched Joe Montana play football, like I wasn't old enough, but to go to 4 Super Bowls and not lose, I mean that just speaks volume in itself. And just his stack, I can't rumble off his stats right now, but Joe was a winner. Obviously he played with. I know a lot of people always talk about him playing with Jerry Rice, but hell, that wasn't his fault. He made the best of it. You know what I mean? So with Joe winning 4 MVPs as well, and 4 Super Bowl championships, or three. He
3
won
Super
3
Bowl
MVPs.
MVPs. Jerry Rice
Oh,
won
okay.
one of them.
So 3 Super Bowl MVPs and 4 championships, 4 for 4. I think it's hard to deny um, what he has done to really solidify himself in that position, because I really think a guy gonna have to win 5 to really put themselves at the number 2 position, like to solidify themselves at the number 2 position, because we know it's going to be a while before anyone catches Tom Brady.
One of the things that I like about doing this show now with you is that before, when I used to do shows with Nick Wright, it was anything I said inflammatory about the Chiefs and he would freak out. Like recently, I sent out a video of one of the plays from the AFC Championship game, and he sent me a message back and was like, I don't think we can be friends anymore. And then when I did it with Danny before you showed up, Danny was like close to like being a Chiefs apologist, but not all the way. And so now you're way more objective. And so for me, I would have Mahomes still 4th on my list of quarterbacks if he wins. And let me just say, for the people that think I'm a huge Chiefs hater, I will say this to compliment Mahomes. If
So
this
wait,
happens,
before you get started, where is he right now? Is he 4th? So you're gonna leave him there even with the win?
no. He would leapfrog the Packers quarterbacks for me. He'd leapfrog
Okay.
Favre. He'd leapfrog Rodgers. And the reason why I'm saying that is because I think he is off to the best start of a career. So when he takes over a starter in 2018 to now, I would say his 7 years as a starting quarterback is better than the first 7 years of Brady. It's better than the first 7 years of he's done better than those guys. But if the question is comparing his career to the entire career of the other guys, it's obviously not better than Brady's entire run. I mean, come on now.
He's by himself.
Right. He's exactly God tier. And look, I understand Peyton Manning only won 2 Super Bowls, and I just derisively said a few minutes ago that he had to get dragged to the other. The guy won 5 NFL MVPs, regular season MVPs, 5. Okay. No other person has done that. So we talked eloquently last week about how you're like, yeah, Cam Newton shouldn't trade his regular season MVP in for a Super Bowl ring. He was the best regular season player in the year 5 times, and he won 2 Super Bowls. I'm still taking his entire career over Mahomes. And look, like I said also earlier, I'm old enough to remember Montana. You brought up Jerry Rice. People that are your age and younger forget that in 81, when he won the Super Bowl, Rice wasn't there. When they went 15-1 in 84, 15-1 and won the Super Bowl, they beat Marino and the Dolphins. Rice wasn't on that team either. He only had Rice for his last 2 Super Bowl wins. I mean, still, he got to play with the greatest wide receiver of all time for a pretty long time, but you can't look at Montana's career and say, well, he's only a byproduct of Jerry Rice.
Yeah.
Because Rice got there later on.
Which I was saying as well. Yeah.
Right. He's got 13 touchdowns to 0 interceptions in the Super Bowl. He's 4-0. You go back and watch any of those games, the guy's basically perfect. He also won 2 regular season MVPs. The dude's an all-time great. It was an awesome system, no doubt. But then Walsh left and he won a Super Bowl with George Seifert as the head coach. So I put those 3 guys still ahead of Mahomes. But one more thing, Pat, and I want to know if you agree with this. I brought up the eye test before with the Chiefs.
Mm-hmm.
I think Mahomes passes my eye test better than the other guys.
100%.
If you say to me, I can only have one of these quarterbacks for one game, and you give me the best that guy has, I'm guaranteed to get the best out of that player. For that one game, I'm taking Mahomes' best over the other guys.
Me too.
You agree with that?
No doubt about it. Because he's not only gonna give me a chance to win. All those quarterbacks give you a chance to win. But Patrick Mahomes is untouchable in the pocket. And even when you do pressure him, he made sugar out of sugar honey iced tea.
He starts moving and scooting around and shit.
You know what I mean? So, like, man, Pat is special, man, and it's fun to see this, on a year in, a year out basis, because I had the opportunity to watch, the Tom Brady's, the Peyton Mannings, I know Drew Brees didn't go to as many Super Bowls, but I had the opportunity to see those quarterbacks operate. And now seeing the new wave of quarterbacks ever since Patrick became a starter, Lamar, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, you know what I mean? It's been really cool to see the innovation of how the quarterbacks have really changed.
Did you play baseball as a kid?
Yeah, a little bit. I dabbled and dabbed in it, but when I got to high school, I never really wanted to bat because that's when they started throwing overhand. I was like, man, if they hit me with this ball, man, we're gonna have a problem out here.
The only reason why I bring that up is because I always tell people about Breeze. Breeze to me is the football equivalent of Greg Maddux. Greg Maddux did not throw hard. He did not look like a great athlete, but he's by far, from a command standpoint, in the 40 years that I've watched baseball, there's no one who was able to put the ball where he wanted more consistently and set people up over and over again like him. He was, throwing low 90s, not nowhere close to 100, but just knew every pitch had a purpose and could basically put the ball where he wanted from 60 feet, 6 inches. And I just think Breeze was surgical with that. His accuracy, I think, is even better than the other guys we're talking about. Some people will bring up the fact that he played in a dome and that he benefited from that. And maybe some of that is true. But I do think because he played in the same era. Yeah,
that is very true.
I think because he played in the same era as Manning and Breeze, though, he kind of gets underappreciated because he was below those guys. All right, Pat, question 5, and it's the big one. Who wins Super Bowl 59 and why?
I'm going with the Chiefs. And I literally have been wrestling. Yeah, I've been wrestling back and forth with this all week. I know the Philadelphia Eagles have the better team on roster, top to bottom. But like we said earlier, you can't win without a quarterback. And I feel like Steve Spagnuolo is going to put Saquon Barkley in a phone booth, at least attempt to. Put him in a phone booth and try to force the Philadelphia Eagles have Jalen Hurts throw the ball around the yard. Now, not saying that he cannot do it, but he haven't done it for the most part on a consistent basis throughout the year. So I know Jalen is a competitor. I know when the lights come on and the numbers call, he's going to be dialed in for it. But I feel like the Philadelphia Eagles are going to try to stick to their guns and stick to the run, because that's what they do. They're going to stick to the run and find a way. And if the run is not working, they're going to try to find ways to get passing plays off of the run, which I think is not going to be beneficial because the run is not working. So now how can you have a passing game? And they already don't have a drop back passing game. So I think it just makes the Philadelphia Eagles' chances that much difficult to win the game if the Chiefs are able to stop the run. And they got Patty Mahomes, man. If it's a close game, Patty ain't losing.
They do have the advantage at kicker too. Butker's made huge kicks in the Super Bowls. Elliott struggled this year. He's missed extra points. He almost, would have been the GOAT in a bad way if they had lost the Rams game because he missed 2 extra points in that game. I'm such a Chiefs hater. I'm picking the Eagles. Like, I just don't want to see the Chiefs do it. And unlike some of these other games where maybe I'm picking it with my heart and not my head, I do think that there's reasonable and logical reasons to think that the Eagles can beat them.
And I just think if it comes down to a situational moment, the Eagles going to drop the ball. I don't know, man. I just have a gut feeling.
Had that fumble against them, and Bolton picked it up and scored a touchdown on it 2 years ago.
Yeah, I feel like, am I really going to put my trust in Kellen Moore, who's calling the plays, or Andy Reid?
Well, that's easy. I mean, that if you're going to boil it down to that, you're going to say Andy Reid. I mean, Andy Reid's one of the 3 or 4
this
best
game
ever.
is possibly going to come down to a 1-possession game. So therefore, you're going to need your play caller to be at his best. So who is the best play caller?
Okay, so let me ask you the question this way. You're right. I mean, I can't do that. I'm not even going to try to litigate that one. Do you feel like if I told you the game was going to be a blowout and that a team was going to win this game by more than 10 points, would you pick the Chiefs or would you pick the Eagles?
I would say the Philadelphia Eagles. If you came into this question saying, yes, if you said that this game was going to be a blowout, just an outright blowout, I would say everything was going right for the Philadelphia Eagles. Which, when I say everything's going right, meaning they didn't allow Patrick to create extra time. They was getting them on the ground versus a lot. I saw the message by Spence. I said, what the heck just happened?
Regular season MVP. I'm like,
yeah, I did too. That's why I said, ooh. But anywho, if the Philadelphia Eagles defensive line is able to get Patrick Mahomes down and not allow them to get those extra, those broken plays, big plays down the field, and allow him to create extra time, then that's everything going right. Like we know that what the Philadelphia Eagles going to do, they're going to try to run the football. So that's been going right all year. But we haven't seen no one get Patrick Mahomes on the ground when they have him corralled in the pocket. So therefore, if they're able to get him down when he's corralled, when they have a chance to, it has a possibility to be a blowout because the Chiefs, majority of their big plays are broken plays or Patrick Mahomes creating extra time to make plays. So again, if the Philadelphia Eagles defensive line are able to get home and get Patrick down, that's what I mean by everything's going right. They're running the football very well. Now they got the Chiefs off balance. Now you got the RPO play action going. A.J. Brown's getting in the game. Devontae Smith getting in the game. Dallas getting in the game. That has the potential to be a blowout.
I think we're due for one. These last few Super Bowls have been so close. The last time we had a blowout was the Buccaneers and Chiefs Super Bowl. And that's when Mahomes ran for his life the entire game. And Brady and those guys killed him.
So if the Philadelphia Eagles can do that, that's the result that you could possibly get.
Well, that's what I mean. I do think, and it's not that the Chiefs are weak on the line of scrimmage. They're not. But I do think the Eagles have the potential here to win the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. I think that their defensive line can beat the Chiefs' offensive line because the Chiefs have had to change things up. Their guards playing left tackle. Their right tackle has been an issue this year. So that's a conundrum for them. And then I think, obviously, the Eagles' offensive line, you take them against any defensive front, even one that has Chris Jones on it.
Mm-hmm.
So if they control the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball, I think they should win. The only reason why I can't say it like with the amount of gusto and confidence that I want is because friggin' Mahomes. That's the reason why I can't. You know, like you have to always put that qualifier on it.
That you do.
But like, could you imagine, and I know this is kind of a wacky thing, if you switch the quarterbacks in this game, I think Philly would beat Kansas City, even with Reed on the other side, by like 3 touchdowns. If you put Mahomes on the Eagles and Hurts on the Chiefs, it would be like, it wouldn't even be a competitive game, I don't think. But he's the great.
You saying that Philly wouldn't win against the Chiefs?
No, I'm saying if you put Mahomes on the Eagles and Hurts on the Chiefs, I think the Eagles would destroy.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Yes, 100%. I agree.
So, all right. So you're taking the Chiefs.
Yep.
I'm picking the Eagles. Sunday night, we'll come back. We'll break the whole thing down. Thanks to Spencer Ray. Thanks to all of you that have been with us all year long. Thanks for all of you that have jumped on the bandwagon here as we've made our way through the playoffs to the ultimate destination, Super Bowl 59, where Pat is in New Orleans. Remember, subscribe, rate, review to the podcast. Let's grow this thing. Let's make it bigger and better. We will talk again Sunday night. Thanks for listening to First and Pod.